What if the most brutal celebrity breakup of the year didn't involve a cheating scandal, but a single number? Not an affair, not a tabloid expose, just 306 versus 59. That's the number of days Nicole Kidman will have custody of their kids. Keith Urban, he gets 59, that's just 17% of the year. And that's not just a number, it's a symbol, a red flag, a quiet scream. For 19 years, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban seemed untouchable, one of the few Hollywood couples that actually made it. But on September 30th, 2025, Nicole filed for divorce. The headlines were polite, irreconcilable differences. But buried inside the court documents was a story nobody was ready to hear. From secret separations and custody deals signed before the news broke, to Nicole's move to Portugal and the rumors about Keith's mystery woman. This isn't just a celebrity divorce. This is a masterclass in how a marriage dies behind closed doors, while the cameras keep rolling. And today, we're pulling back the curtain on the truth behind Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban's $325 million divorce, how it started, who left first, and what the documents reveal that the public statements never will. This is the story behind the silence. And it starts with a post. What if the most brutal celebrity breakup of the year didn't involve a cheating scandal, but a single number? Not an affair, not a tabloid expose, just 306 versus 59. That's the number of days Nicole Kidman will have custody of their kids. Keith Urban, he gets 59. That's just 17% of the year. And that's not just a number, it's a symbol, a red flag, a quiet scream. For 19 years, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban seemed untouchable, one of the few Hollywood couples that actually made it. But on September 30th, 2025, Nicole filed for divorce. The headlines were polite, irreconcilable differences. But buried inside the court documents was a story nobody was ready to hear. From secret separations and custody deals signed before the news broke, to Nicole's move to Portugal and the rumors about Keith's mystery woman, this isn't just a celebrity divorce. This is a masterclass in how a marriage dies behind closed doors, while the cameras keep rolling. And today, we're pulling back the curtain on the truth behind Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban's $325 million divorce, how it started, who left first, and what the documents reveal that the public statements never will. This is the story behind the silence, and it starts with a post. Nicole filed for divorce on September 30th, but Keith had already signed the custody plan. 2 months earlier, that's right, while fans were still fawning over their anniversary posts, Keith Urban was signing away primary custody of his children. On August 1st, 2025, court documents show Keith agreed to the parenting plan. Nicole would get 306 days with their daughters. Keith would get 59. That's not co-parenting. That's part-time fatherhood. Even more shocking, he didn't fight it. He didn't contest the arrangement. He didn't demand more time. Why? Was it his touring schedule? Was it something deeper, like the addiction issues he's battled before? Or had he just emotionally checked out? The documents don't answer those questions directly, but they say everything without saying anything. Because when a parent agrees to just 17% custody, that decision echoes louder than any press release ever could. And get this, Keith also prepaid all child support in a single lump sum. No monthly checks, no negotiations, just a clean break, like he wanted to tie up every legal loose end before the headlines even hit. By the time TMZ broke the story in late September, the divorce was old news. To them, to us, it was a bombshell. But what led to such a quiet exit? And why was Nicole still pretending they were together? The answer may lie in what Keith chose instead of his marriage. Keith Urban wasn't just absent emotionally, he was literally never home. In 2025, Keith was deep into his High and Alive world tour, promoting his hit 2024 album High. Dozens of shows, thousands of miles, months on the road. According to insider schedules, Keith was away from Nashville more than 200 days that year. That's 2/3 of the year gone. Meanwhile, Nicole's career, while massive, operated differently. As the highest-paid actress of 2024, she filmed projects like the Practical Magic sequel in chunks. She always came back home between shoots. She built her work around family. Keith? He built his life around the stage, and that touring lifestyle wasn't new. It had defined their marriage for years. But in 2025, it became unmanageable. Friends close to Nicole say she was tired of raising their daughters alone, tired of the balancing act, and tired of pretending, because this wasn't just a temporary absence. It was a pattern, one that made the 306 vs 59 split feel like a formality, not a shock. Some fans are already calling this a career over family situation. Others point to Keith's past struggles with addiction, wondering if that played a role. We'll talk about that soon, but what's clear right now is this. Keith may not have cheated. He may not have lied, but he left, one tour stop at a time. And Nicole? She finally stopped waiting. If Nicole was trying to save her marriage, why was she preparing to leave the country? In early summer 2025, just weeks after Keith Urban quietly signed the custody agreement, Nicole Kidman applied for a Portuguese visa. On paper, it was for work. But dig deeper, and it starts to look like an exit strategy. The visa she applied for wasn't just for filming. It was a residency permit, meaning she wanted to live in Portugal at least part of the year. And guess who wasn't included in that paperwork? Keith Urban. When you apply for residency in another country, especially as a high-profile figure, the form asks about family, dependents, spouses. Nicole didn't list Keith. In fact, his name didn't appear at all. No joint application. No plans to relocate together. Just Nicole and her future without him. Publicly, a rep claimed Keith would apply later because he was busy on tour. But insiders weren't buying it. And here's why. Keith had already moved out of their Nashville home and into his own place, described as a bachelor pad by locals. At the same time, Nicole was laying the groundwork to start a new life in Europe. Keith was setting up a solo one in Tennessee, and this wasn't just speculation. Local news outlets began whispering about real estate deals in Portugal's ultra-exclusive Costa Golf and Ocean Club. That's the same gated community where Nicole's new neighbors might include George Clooney and Paris Hilton. It all added up to something obvious but devastating. This wasn't a mutual decision. Nicole was planning a future without Keith, and Keith was already living like she wasn't coming back. But if Nicole was preparing to leave, was Keith already moving on? The divorce hadn't even gone public, but Nashville was already buzzing about Keith's new companion. After news of the separation broke, the whispers started instantly. According to multiple insiders and entertainment blogs, Keith Urban already had someone else. Was it an affair, a rebound, or just the inevitable next chapter? The rumors centered around a woman from his touring circle, possibly a close friend, or even a backup musician. Some speculated it could be Natalie Stovall, his longtime touring guitarist. But Natalie is married, and has been for 17 years. That's important because it doesn't matter if it's her. The point is this. People close to Keith already believed the marriage was over. One insider told reporters, "It wasn't a secret. Everyone in Keith's circle knew this was coming. The only surprise is how long they pretended." So while Nicole was still fighting to make things work, Keith was living solo, surrounded by friends who expected the split, and maybe even supported it. It's hard not to wonder, did Nicole know about the other woman? Or did she just sense that something, or someone, had changed? Because while Nicole was still posting anniversary tributes, Keith was nowhere to be seen. Not at events, not on Instagram, not in interviews. He wasn't just absent physically, he'd emotionally checked out. And if there was another woman, the real heartbreak might not be infidelity, it might be indifference. But Nicole wasn't innocent in the rumor mill either. Because at the exact same time Keith was being accused of moving on, so was she. While Keith was allegedly shacking up in Nashville, Nicole was spotted getting close to someone else in Paris. In August 2024, Nicole attended the Paris Olympic Games, but she wasn't alone. Multiple gossip blogs and blind items claimed she was all over a man who wasn't her husband. The mystery man? Some insiders claim it was her trainer or bodyguard, someone she's often photographed hugging, walking with, even traveling beside. One particularly juicy blind item accused Nicole of having an ongoing romantic connection with the man she brings everywhere. That same month, a viral headline read, "Nicole Kidman gets affectionate with bodyguard days after Cannes PDA with Keith Urban." So, which was it? A loving marriage? Or a carefully coordinated performance? It doesn't stop there. Another name popped up. Simon Baker, her Australian co-star. A third blind item suggested the two had a decades-long flirtation, and that every time they work together, something happens. So maybe both Nicole and Keith were emotionally checked out long before the lawyers got involved. But here's what makes it messier. Nicole was trying to keep the illusion going. Keith? Not so much, and it all came to a head, in the most public, awkward way possible. Their marriage ended quietly. Their finances? Even quieter, because they'd planned for this breakup 19 years ago. Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban signed one of the strictest prenuptial agreements in Hollywood. No spousal support, no financial entanglements. Each kept their own assets, royalties, copyrights, earnings, homes. Nicole keeps her movie money. Keith keeps his touring income. No court battles, no drawn-out settlements, no drama. But what's more telling is why this prenup existed. Because Nicole had already lived through a very public, very painful divorce with Tom Cruise. She wasn't going through that again. By the time she married Keith in 2006, Nicole was one of the most powerful women in Hollywood. She'd just won an Oscar. Her net worth dwarfed Keith's. So from day one, she built a financial firewall, and Keith agreed to it. That tells us something very specific. Even in their happiest moment at the beginning, they both knew it might not last. This isn't just a legal document. It's a warning label on the marriage itself. And nearly 2 decades later, when the end came, that prenup made everything fast, clean, and clinical, which means the only thing left to fight over was time with their children. And that's where the numbers hit hard. Legal filings said irreconcilable differences, but the custody math told the real story. Nicole was raising the kids alone. In the divorce papers filed in Nashville on September 30th, 2025, Nicole Kidman requested primary custody of their 2 daughters, 17-year-old Sunday and 14-year-old Faith. The final agreement. Nicole gets them 306 days per year. Keith gets them for just 59 days. That's 83% to 17%. A split that doesn't happen in a balanced, co-parenting situation. It's what you see when one parent travels constantly or isn't available for consistent care or simply doesn't ask for more. Keith didn't contest the split. He signed it back in August, before the divorce even became public. And when a father agrees to see his children only 2 months out of every 12, it's hard not to ask, why? There's no mention of addiction in the paperwork. No accusations of neglect or danger, just absence. Fans started putting the pieces together. If he's on tour 200+ days a year, of course he can't be a full-time parent. But Nicole's actions show something deeper. She didn't just request primary custody. She structured her entire life around being home with the girls. That's why she films projects like miniseries and short-term films. That's why she stayed based in Nashville while Keith was flying from country to country. This custody split wasn't about spite. It was about reality. She was already doing all the parenting. The divorce just made it official. And Keith? He prepaid his entire child support obligation in one lump sum. Another clue that he wanted this to be clean, quick, and done. It wasn't a scandal. It was worse. It was emotional abandonment, hidden behind tour dates and headlines. And when you trace that pattern back, you find something even darker. Before the love story began, it almost ended because of Keith's addiction. In 2006, just 4 months into their marriage, Keith Urban entered rehab for alcohol addiction. Nicole staged an intervention. She stood by him. She stayed. And in every interview since, she's talked about what that moment taught her. "You can't save someone," Nicole said. "They have to want to save themselves." It was a powerful quote, one that made her seem both romantic and strong. And for a while, it looked like they made it through. Keith got clean. Nicole kept the family together. But behind closed doors, the work continued. Addiction doesn't vanish, it hides. And some sources close to the couple whispered that Keith's struggle never fully went away, that there were relapses, distance, friction. Nicole was his rock for years. But even rocks get tired. So when we look at the custody split now, and we see Keith getting only 17% of the time, we have to ask, was this just about tour dates? Or was Nicole protecting her daughters from something more? Again, the legal documents don't say it directly. But they don't have to, because when someone agrees to see their children only 59 days a year, it's not always about wanting to be a part-time dad. Sometimes it's about being allowed to be one. And it's not just the numbers that suggest this divorce was a long time coming. Their inner circle knew, long before the rest of us did. To fans, the divorce was a shock, but to their inner circle, it was just confirmation. Right after the news broke, multiple sources close to Keith Urban told media outlets the same thing. Everyone around him knew. The marriage had been over for a while. His friends weren't surprised. In fact, some of them were apparently waiting for it to end, and that might be the most heartbreaking part for Nicole. While she was still fighting, still posting sweet photos, still wearing her ring, his people had already moved on. No one told her to her face. But the message was clear. Keith had emotionally checked out long before the paperwork was filed. Sources say that even within the Kidman family, support started shifting toward Nicole. Her sister and children became her emotional anchors, and as more stories surfaced about her visa, about Keith's bachelor pad, about the emotional distance, fans started connecting the dots. This wasn't a sudden split. It was a slow death, the kind that only becomes visible once you stop pretending. And if we go by the timeline, Keith signed the custody plan on August 1st. Nicole filed for divorce on September 30th. That's 2 months of silence where the public believed everything was fine. But both of them were already walking away. It was never about who cheated first or who left first. It was about who stopped pretending first. No interviews, no statements, not even a caption. Nicole and Keith didn't just break up, they ghosted the world. From the moment Nicole filed for divorce on September 30th, 2025, the silence was deafening. No press release, no Instagram post, no People magazine exclusive, just court filings. Even the most private celebrity divorces usually come with some kind of polite PR spin. We remain committed to our family. We ask for privacy. But Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban said nothing. They let the documents do the talking, and that silence said everything. Because when the legal paperwork is more revealing than the people behind it, you know there's something they don't want to explain. The 306 versus 59 custody split, the prepaid child support, the separate living arrangements months before the news broke. If this had been a clean, mutual decision, they would have said so. But this wasn't mutual. This was a slow, silent surrender, and the public noticed. Fans who once admired their love story suddenly had questions. Was it ever real? Was Nicole fighting for something Keith had already abandoned? And why didn't either of them want to defend their side? The truth is, there may be no side to defend. Just years of distance, masked by red carpet smiles and Instagram captions. And now that the curtain's dropped, all that's left is a cold silence and a custody schedule. They were supposed to be the last good ones. Now even the fans are fighting. When news of the divorce broke, social media erupted, but not just in shock, in grief. Because for nearly 2 decades, Nicole and Keith were a symbol of what could work in Hollywood. They weren't flashy, they weren't messy, they were low drama, high devotion, or so we thought. Reddit threads called them the last real couple in showbiz. TikTok users posted tributes to their sweetest moments, interviews, anniversary videos, Keith's emotional speech at Nicole's AFI ceremony. But as the details emerged, the fanbase split in two. Team Nicole. She did everything, raised the kids, held the marriage together. He left. Team Keith. She was never home, filming constantly, playing sex scenes with Zac Efron. What did she expect? Some fans even theorized both were checked out and just waited until the kids were teens to end it. But others weren't as analytical. They were just devastated, because whether it was real or not, they made us believe. And when the people we believe in fall apart, it feels personal. This wasn't just another Hollywood divorce. This was the last fantasy crumbling. The idea that 2 A-listers could really stay in love forever. And now, fans are left with nothing but legal documents and memories. Nicole once said, "I'm not a believer in perfect." Turns out, neither was Keith. At the premiere of her Netflix series The Perfect Couple, Nicole was asked if the title applied to her and Keith. Her answer, "You're heading for trouble if you consider yourselves the perfect couple." No one paid much attention at the time, but in hindsight it was a warning, a quiet confession that something was already broken, and now we know they weren't the perfect couple, not even close. Behind the scenes, Nicole was applying for Portuguese residency. Without Keith, Keith was living alone in Nashville. Both were filming, touring, posting, pretending. They performed their marriage like a role, showing up at the right times, saying the right things, never letting the mask slip. Even their final anniversary post feels surreal now. Happy anniversary, baby, while living in separate homes. It wasn't a lie. It was a performance, a perfect one, until it wasn't. We talk about the marriage, but this story is really about a woman who got tired of waiting. Strip away the fame, the red carpets, the Oscar wins, and what's left is this. Nicole Kidman was raising 2 teenage daughters, largely alone. While Keith was on tour 200+ days a year, Nicole was home in Nashville, managing school schedules, maintaining the family base, taking on projects that allowed her to return between shoots. The court documents confirm what many suspected. She was the only present parent, and maybe that's why she didn't fight over money, or make a public scene, or try to hurt Keith with words, because the battle had already been fought, one silent day at a time. By the time Nicole filed for divorce, the hard part was already done. She'd already let go of the fantasy, accepted that Keith wasn't coming home, chosen her daughters over appearances. That's why she didn't need to say anything. She just filed the papers and moved on. No fireworks, no cheating scandal, just a signature and silence. On August 1st, 2025, Keith Urban signed the custody plan. On September 30th, Nicole Kidman filed for divorce. And just like that, one of Hollywood's longest-running marriages ended. Not with drama, not with headlines, but with a whisper. They played their roles beautifully. 19 years, 2 kids, 0 public meltdowns. But now the performance is over. Nicole gets 306 days with their daughters. Keith gets 59, and that number, more than any quote, tweet, or tabloid story, tells us everything. Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman never needed to explain their divorce, because the documents did it for them. A custody split of 306 to 59, a silence that spoke louder than any press tour prenup that predicted the ending before the vows were even made in the end. This wasn't a divorce based on betrayal. It was based on absence, emotional, physical, parental, and the saddest part. It happened slowly. So slowly, they didn't even notice they were living apart until the paperwork made it official. This wasn't a fight. It was a fade. So here's the question I'll leave you with. Was Nicole Kidman's marriage really a love story, or was it a carefully choreographed illusion that finally unraveled? When a woman raises children alone while her partner tours the world, when she files for residency in another country without him, when the only thing he fights for is to finish paying child support in advance, that's not a partnership. That's a solo act. And no matter how much money, fame, or love songs get poured into it, no illusion lasts forever. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Was this just about career and distance? Or is there something deeper the documents aren't saying? Subscribe for more deep dives on celebrity stories, hidden truths, and the breakups no one sees coming. And don't forget to hit the like button if this gave you a different perspective. Until next time, remember, the numbers don't lie.